today that was mentioned in the bulletin actually took place last week, and I'm sorry I missed it. And I guess what we're going to do for those of you who may have missed it is we're going to share with you a video just to sort of refresh, and it won't be nearly as good as Benny did, I'm quite certain. But we're going to share with you a video of what transpired in that time.
Great light shines best in great darkness. That is a lesson we learned as we traveled many miles in the darkness of night. And I know. Nighttime is the most dangerous time to travel. However, there's a great degree of difficulty in following a star in the daylight. We were looking for royalty, but we had no idea what we were going to find. I've been in the outer courts of princes and kings, noisy assemblages, these hangers-on every corner, quarters of favor, making endless rackets, scheming, chattering, everyone wanting an audience with nobility. And none of that here. No. Here, silence. Lingering, calm, awestruck silence. Here, a newborn, wrapped in cloths, lying in a feeding trough. There were two milkos standing silently behind him. Chickens pecked on the ground. An exhausted woman in a hospital. And outside, shepherds. Shepherds timidly watching. All are silent. We dare not say a word. We bow down. We worship. And we gently lay our gifts on the ground. I spent the bulk of my days searching for the truth of it all, trying to make sense of this life. But that search, it was different. That time, while we were searching, we were also being led, not merely by a star, but by the hand of Almighty God. He led us. He led us to the one in whom all truth rests. He led us to a child, a baby, a king.
So as I said last week, it seems as if we heard from a wise man who wasn't a man at all, right? It led me to wonder what would have happened had it been wise women visiting Christ that day as opposed to wise men. How would it have maybe have looked different? And I thought, well, for starters, had it been women instead of men, let's face it, they probably would have stopped and asked for directions. Therefore, they probably would have arrived on time. Also, you got to believe, had it been women instead of men, that they would have brought a casserole, right? I mean, after all, you don't go to the house of new parents without bringing dinner. In addition to this, they probably would have cleaned the stable while they had been there. And for that matter, they most likely would have helped with the delivery. And yes, they probably would have brought far more practical gifts. It's just what women do, right? But hey, The Bible tells us that they were wise men. Which, by the way, does not mean academically smart. It means that they had this great understanding of what had occurred. And so they come, and they bow down, and they worship. Worship Jesus. They lay before him their gifts. After all, he was the king. Not a king, the king. Let us pray. Father, as we reflect upon your word this morning, we pray that it would speak to us loud and clear through the power of your Holy Spirit, that we might hear it anew, afresh, and we might apply it to our lives. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Today is Epiphany Sunday, and that is the day in which we hear the story of the wise men. We hear about this group of men who had been following a star for an unspecified distance over an unspecified period of time, right? We ask the question oftentimes, who were these men? And we really don't know. We really don't. They were believed to be men of high standing for sure, but we don't know an awful lot about these men. Some say that they were Jews who had remained in the East following the Babylonian exile. Others say that they were Eastern astrologers who saw the star and they had studied the Old Testament that had been left behind after the exile, and they came seeking the Christ child because of that. Who knows though? Who knows? Maybe they were simply given a message from God to go in search of the Messiah. And we've said this many times, we don't even know how many of them there were. You know, scholars, most scholars actually believe there were probably more than this traditional number of 3 that we put in our nativity scenes every year. We don't know much about them at all. Don't know where they came from. Verse 2 tells us only that they came from the east. How far east? We don't know. Don't really know. That said, it's believed that they probably traveled at least 1,000 miles. That's what scholars project. Not in a plane, not on a train, not in a Mustang or a Bronco, but on a camel. For goodness sakes, they traveled via a camel, probably about 20 to 25 miles a day. And simple math will tell us then that the trip would have taken months and months. And get this, the camels, they were not equipped with GPS. They had a star, but they followed by night. And of course their faith that led them, as our drama tells us, to the Messiah. And when they finally arrive at this humble home, they almost had to be thinking, we must have gone wrong somewhere. Right? Almost had to be thinking that. You know, they were waiting for that mechanical voice to come on and say, redirecting, redirecting. Our drama proclaims that they knew where kings lived. The sort of palaces and mansions that they took up residence in. It wasn't an expectation that they would find the King of Kings and a modest home, let alone a stable. Still, in spite of all this, they don't turn around, right? They don't question their route destination. They didn't say, well, that's 2 years of our lives that we can never get back again. No. I mean, that's something you and I might do, right? Right? We find something that is underwhelming or doesn't turn out the way we want, and we think, wow, what a waste of time. You know, that dream job you thought you were going to get that falls through. And you become angry or you become bitter. And you think to yourself, all that time I spent chasing after that job, what a waste. Or that relationship you thought was the one. It was going to be, and it just fizzles out. You think I devoted all that time and energy. For what? For nothing. Or you spend time looking for your dream home only to have things consistently fall through. Anybody relate? See, I can relate to that. I can relate to that because many of you know that several years ago, Denise and I began looking for a home, a secluded home, if you will, a retreat where we could someday retire to. Initially, we found a piece of land. We were sure that it was perfect. And so we could build our retirement home on it someday. And we put in an offer, and we signed the papers, only to have it fall through due to sewage issues. So we went searching again. This time we find a log cabin near Apollo. It had to build in benefit of being close enough to Russell Helen that we could have a weekly card key. You know? So once again we put in an offer and we signed the papers, only to have it fall through once again, as the owner would not even allow us to do an inspection there. And we were discouraged, right? Even thought that maybe it was time to end our search. And at some level we were thinking, what a waste of almost 2 years, right? Because that's what you tend to do sometimes when things don't work out quite the way you want them, or you don't end up where you think you're going to end up. But after a while, we, and by we I mean my wife, began searching again. And we eventually come across this property in the middle of Amish country near Newcastle. It was secluded. A secluded home surrounded by trees with a pond in front of it. This was a home that we finally purchased, that we hope someday to retire to. And my point is simply this. It is so easy to become discouraged when things don't work out the way you expect them to. It really is. The real question then becomes, how do you respond to that? How do you respond? The Magi probably expected something far grander. You got to believe that they would have. They knew where kings lived, the type of residence they had. But they found Jesus in a simple home in Bethlehem. That's where the star led them to. But there is not even a hint or suggestion that these men's faith ever wavered even just a little bit. If it's me, I'm afraid I might have at least been tempted to say, wait a minute, we must have got this wrong. As I pulled up on my camel in front of this modest home. I mean, we've all been there at different times. We all go through experiences like where this might be the case. Frankly, some of us feel like we're just facing one disappointment after another. But as we look at today's text and the story of the Magi, and we look at their reaction, I believe there's so much we can learn from them. So much. We can learn that when wise men and wise women, I don't want to discriminate at all here today, when they might be underwhelmed by a situation or even disappointed, just like the Magi, we need to trust God. Trust God and to look for Him in the midst of that, to look for His hand in the midst of even the disappointing situations. Wise men and wise women of every generation have been handed difficult situations. That's the nature of being human. It's the nature of living in a post-Genesis 3 world, if you will. The key for us as believers, as followers of Jesus, is not to panic. Don't panic. Instead, we need to say to ourselves with confidence, I know that God is somewhere here in the midst of what's going on. I know He is. We can look at any number of biblical characters, and you can just almost page after page of the Bible. From Joseph to Job to David to the Apostle Paul. I mean, cover to cover, there are examples of those who faced personal loss or imprisonment, persecution. And in every case, when we look at the heroes of the Bible, whether they find themselves in life-threatening situations, as many of them do along their journey, they don't panic. Instead, they find God in the midst of what's going on. That's the story of the Magi. That's the story of us as Christians. John Maxwell, he writes that the difference between a weak Christian and a strong Christian is this. Weak Christians only see God in the good, while strong Christians see God in both the good and the bad. Think about it. Really, how many of us are quick to acknowledge God and His presence in our lives when things are going really well. But then you fail to look for Him or acknowledge His presence when things are going bad. I love the saying, it's one of my favorites, the wise men still seek Him. You've all seen it on bumper stickers, on cars. Wise men still seek Him. But the fact of the matter is this, wise men and wise women, they seek Him in every situation. Not just the good and not just the bad, but in every situation. In the trials and in the triumphs. Because He's there. For us as believers, as followers, He is there. That's His promise. He will never leave us. Never forsake us. Though the wise men in our scripture, they did not say to themselves, surely the Messiah could not be born in a stable. Could not be housed in this modest home in Bethlehem. No, not the King of Kings. It couldn't be. The star has to lead to a mansion. Got to lead to a palace. We must be in the wrong place. They don't say that. They don't do that. They follow the star. And when it led them to Bethlehem, they looked for God. And just like the shepherds before them, they found Him in the midst of what seemed to be a messy situation. As we follow our stars, as we follow our dreams in this world, in this life, they may lead us down some unexpected pathway, sometimes even disappointing destinations. And there will be a temptation to say that the King of Kings can't be here, can't be a part of this. But today's Scriptures tells us that He's there. That we follow that dream, when we follow our star, wherever it leads, we need to look for God. First and foremost, we need to look for God when we get there. And if we look for Him, we'll find Him. That's His promise, and that's the story of the Magi. As for Denise and I, as we pulled up into the driveway that first time that we arrived at this home, that home that we hoped someday to retire to, we were immediately greeted by a massive stone in the front of the driveway, which had engraved upon it the Ten Commandments. You know, God had been with us all along. He never left us. And for us, this was confirmation. You know, there He was. He was there. His commandments engraved on this big stone. It's easy to sometimes become disillusioned. Even as pastors, it can happen. To lose sight that God is there every step of the way. Every trial, every trial. And we looked to the wise men and we realized that when they arrived, not only did they look for God, they did something else. They gave their best, right? We've talked about these gifts before. They gave their very best. They gave gifts fit for the King. The King. And their best included, of course, gold and frankincense and myrrh. The gold representing His kingship, the frankincense a symbol of both His deity and His priesthood, and the myrrh pointing towards His death and His burial. And they were expensive gifts. Make no mistake about it, they were costly. They didn't come cheap. A gram of myrrh would cost you an arm and a leg, or an income. And that's if you could get it at all. It was extraordinarily expensive. Frankincense was only a small fraction less expensive at the time, and gold was gold, right? Always been valuable. Yet it very well may have been the least expensive, the least valuable at that time of the three gifts that were laid before Jesus. The point being, they were extraordinary gifts that they brought. They were their best. They were costly. Which causes us, I think, every time we read this story to ask the question, what do we bring to God? Right? What gifts do we lay before the child, the Savior of the world? How costly is it what you give to God? I mean, take a minute to just think about that. After giving years of their life, these Magi, they come to worship Jesus. They gave years of their life, and then they bring these extraordinarily expensive, costly gifts to Him. How does what you give to Jesus stack up to that? The time that you are willing to give Jesus, how does it stack up to that? The cost that you're willing to endure for Him. I mean, I'm you just ask. And I think at the first of the year, it's always good to sort of evaluate. What am I doing for God? What am I doing for my Savior? What am I giving? How much is it costing me? How much is enough time? You know, they spent years probably traveling, months if not years. How much is enough time to spend with and for someone who came to save you? How much is enough time? How much is enough energy to devote to the King of Kings, the Messiah of the world? I mean, as wise men, if we're going to be called that, or wise men, we need to give it extra effort. You know, we need to give it until it hurts. And I truly believe that. In both good and bad situations. All to His glory. The glory of the Christ child. And as a final thought, we ought to never forget that those original wise men did not, well, they didn't return home to see where they came. Right? This visit to the King of Kings, this time of worship, it changed more than just their route home. I suspect it changed the trajectory of their lives forever. Every challenging situation in which we seek out God and hopefully give Him our best should bring about change in our lives as well. I mean, it really should, because as you find God, and He's there, as you find Him in these difficult times, these times of trial, and as He sees you through them, your faith ought to just grow every time. You've got this memory bank to look back on and say, well, He saw me through this time. You know, He led me to that perfect retirement home. Even confirmed it with the 10 Commandments in front of Him. Why would I question His presence the next time I struggle? The next time I'm underwhelmed, if you will. Every time He sees us through a situation, ought to just cause our faith to well up and grow more and more. And beyond that, beyond this sort of small picture perspective, of course, lies the bigger picture, right? I mean, how did the drama put it? It said, I had spent most of my years searching for the truth of it all, hoping that life might make sense. Here's the thing, once you find that truth, which of course Jesus, make no mistake about it, is the way and the truth and the life, once you follow that star and you find that truth, your life has to change its course. It absolutely has to. Because you no longer go your old familiar way. That sort of well-traveled road. You now start walking His path. Your life has to change. Jesus, the King of Kings, will chart a new course for your life. It'll be His way, and not your way. So that if you can't tell the difference between what your life looked like before Jesus and how it looked now, we need to take a long look in the mirror. We really need to ask ourselves the question, have we simply made Him our Savior? Just our Savior, but not made Him our Lord. Right? I mean, let's face it. It is easy to say, Jesus saved me, right? That's easy to cry out, Jesus saved me. Maybe in a church service or a Christmas Eve candlelight service. It's a little harder to say, Jesus, lead me. Jesus, to say to Him, I don't want to keep going the direction that I've been going. I want You to be in charge of my life. I don't want to be in charge of it. I want You to oversee the important decisions that I face every day. I want You to be more than my Savior. I want You to be my Lord. The change of direction is paramount for us as followers of Jesus. It looks different for everyone. And we all go through that change at a different pace. But the direction has to be different. You got to be walking a different direction at some level than when you first met Him. when you first came to know Jesus. I guess it's just a few lessons, and we've probably heard them all before, but these are lessons that we can take from the Magi. And I believe that if we see, follow their example, that your life will take a new course. I think it has to, if you truly invite him to. If you're truly searching for the truth and have found it. Maybe today's the day to say, here I am, trust me, turn to me, submit to me. Maybe today is the day that we need to say to Jesus, lead me. You're my Savior, and I love you for that. But I give my life to you. Be my Lord, not just my Savior. Let him change the direction of your life from this day forward. Let's pray. Father, we thank you and praise you for this example, but even more so, that you are a life changer. You sent your son Jesus to change not only our eternal destiny, but to change our lives right here and right now if we'll just let you. And so, Lord, as we prepare to enter into this holy ordinance, I pray, Lord, for myself, and I pray for everybody here gathered, that you would, Lord, lead us and guide us to surrender fully to you as our Savior, but also as our Lord. I pray this in your